very true. So thus far, Nikki has stood us up. So we're just going to have to talk about state management without her, and she'll have to join in whenever she gets there. So does anyone do, you mentioned, Aiden, you don't want the bloat of MobX, which is blasphemy. But
I don't mean like the bloat from a loading all of that information into, like, I don't want to have to think about how MobX works or require the next developer to, if it's something that I can solve at the local storage level.
I know, I'm just kidding.
I know.
But
I am also a fan of using local state instead of Redux or anything like that when practical. Redux is for bigger applications when you want to keep things smaller. I just pass around a couple of variables and call it a day.
Yeah, I look forward to growing to the point where I need MobX for a solution. The stuff you guys do with it is incredible.
Mike, do you want to show anything in state management land?
Yeah, sure. Let me find my demo there.
Did you call up your demo yet?
It's been 2 seconds.
I know, but while Mike's doing demo, check out this awesome loading screen that he gave me. Look at that. Ah, it's so cool. Courtesy of the science loading screen.
I Dockerize everything, and the only thing you care about is a loading screen.
I mean, it was a cool loading screen.
I don't know if you guys follow Nick Craver from Stack Overflow, but he said loading indicators are a sign of performance, not optimizing for performance.
So I did go over this at HAX Camp, but this is the link to the demo that I did. And what it is was a demo of MobX and how we've been using it in some of our, it's in HAX, the HAX editor. And what it is it's probably the most simple state management library that's out there in our opinion. Trust me, I've been through them all. And MobX seems to be like the most magic thing that I've ever used. And typically I wouldn't have liked all the magic, but after working with a lot of different state management libraries, I'm fully on board with the magic now. So the basic premise is that you have a store, just like every state management library has. So in this case, we have a count and some actions. And with MobX, what you can do is you can say this count here, I want to observe that. So I want to observe any state changes to that variable. And then you can also set up different actions. Actions are functions that change the state. So in your, let me call this up here. Okay.
I'm a huge fan of observables.
You are?
I am.
Okay. They aren't observables like are you talking about like RxJS?
Yeah,
or?
They're like lightweight versions of them.
Yeah. So in there's a this is the finished product of the demo, so it's not much of a demo, so I'm sort of like deconstructing it after the case here. But basically in the demo, what I did was I did an initial demo, and I actually have a video. Tom, can you remember where I put that video? It's the like state management explained or something. I think you edited it for me. It's on my YouTube channel, but I go through setting up this counting app like the vanilla JavaScript way using event listeners, and then moving it to MobX And then on top of that, using MobX lit element as a base class for how easy it is to tap into the store. Westbrook, who was on the call last week, is working on this module, or this base class MobX lit element. And what it allows you to do is just pass the store right into your render function, and you have access to everything in the store. So anytime store count changes, it's going to re-render this. Now, if you take a look at examples that are using MobX that aren't using this base class, what you have to do is you have to set up event listeners for every time these observables change. Now, it's not too bad. Like, I'll take it, but this just looks so clean here. So basically, if we had a this dot name Mike, setting up a new state here for name, it's going to be an observable, and then I can just use that right in my render function. So I'm bringing the store in. This is the store that I'm exporting here, new instance of it. And right in my render function, I can just say store.name, and it shows up. So let's see here. Yeah, that's it. That's the demo. The video is like 45 minutes long, but basically we got here. So yeah, so why we use MobX is that we can, that process of setting up a local state that's that easily, that is that easy to observe and to pass around to your other elements. So in this case, we're sharing state between the toolbar and the main body of the app. That is just like about as dead simple as you could possibly get, right? So the developer experience, I think that is about as good as you're going to get.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that style. I don't like having to write the event listeners, and what I guess the equivalent of lit element is the request update. It kind of skips all that logic for you. So it's just, if you update the property, it updates.
Yeah. So this is what we would do, what we are currently doing without using the lit MobX base class. The first thing that we do is, so we have local state, and in this case, we're pulling in the state from the HAX CMS store. So if you use HAX CMS, we provide you with a store that's already set up. So it has like your site hierarchy and links to all of your pages and what the active item is based on the URL. So it has the routing all baked in here. Now to use it, you implement the auto run function in MobX. So this is the magic of MobX. Is in your constructor, you set up an auto run function. And inside of that auto run, you just select anything in your store that you're looking to get. And this auto run function will automatically set up, start listening for these changes to these specific properties. So listeners to these specific properties for you.
So that's like React's connect function.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we're disposing those functions. Now, what you also have to do is you have to set local variables as well. So in lit, I would have to set up the this.manifest property for this element. Otherwise, the render function doesn't know that it needs to re-render. The MobX lit element, it just sets all that stuff up for you under the hood. So yeah, I'm very excited about started to use this base class.
Yeah, we can gut a lot of the internal logic to HAX CMS's site editor stuff that just involved either event juggling or yeah, just lots of auto runs. Like we have lots of properties that are duplicated other places. HAX itself uses event juggling in part because I didn't want to use MobX, because MobX 5 you can't support IE11, and stupidly a year ago I thought that would be important, and so I've changed course on that. So we're probably going to rewrite the state management in HAX to not be event driven and be MobX lit element, and then it'll be in total alignment with HAX CMS as well in that regard. It's just so much nicer to use. Now, from a modular pieces standpoint, though, we're not going to ship MobX as a requirement for any of our elements that we would hope other people would use. And that's certainly been a little more complicated. Oh, Nikki's on. Nikki, are you actually there? You are there.
Yeah,
So,
I'm actually here.
I would say Nikki's singleton paradigm is the only other way you can counter or circumvent this, right? So, for example, I'd say grid plate. I'm saying these words now, Nikki, so you can like cue up that part and be like, hey,
I have a couple of things queued up if you're
Awesome.
ready for me to share my screen. I wanted you to talk nice things about me first.
So I would say where we make that designation between the two, we have stuff that's event driven, like HAX is event driven. We're moving away from that. But if you're adopting HAX, you're adopting as part of a larger ecosystem. Same with HAX CMS. It's its own stinking system. It needs state management. But in the case of like Nikki's simple colors work, we're not going to require that you have MobX just because you like our color set. Like that just doesn't make a lot of sense. Similarly with grid plate, I know is another big one, or we have like dialogues where we'll have event driven dialogues and a thing listening as a singleton to just control dialogues opening. So other than just saying you're wonderful, Nikki, would you like to take over? And
I was wondering because there wasn't enough nice stuff about me there. That was just like about our shit. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. So I do, can you see what I have queued up?
Nope.
Expletive deleted. I had it set to share.
Yeah, she co-presented.
There we go.
There we go.
So that is not that's the wrong desktop. Can you see desktop too? With the relative heading demo?
Nice.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
All right, so I wanted to show you what this is being used in first, and then I'll show you the code that's behind that. So one of the simplest ones that I could show before we go up to video player is this relative heading demo, because I work in the world of learning content, and one of the things that would happen a lot is the fact that we would have to go bulk update a bunch of headings just because one heading level got updated, and we want to keep the heading hierarchy accessible. The other reason is sometimes we'd want to view by page. Other times we want the student to be able to download and print a whole lesson, and I'd like to keep the full lesson view as hierarchical as possible as well. So one of my wish lists for what I wish the web would do is have relative headings. Headings that you could say, hey, I'm a heading 2 as long as my heading 1 parent is here. But if my heading 1 parent becomes a heading 2, I'm a heading 3. And if it's not there, I'm a heading 1. So you can see what I have here are slotted headings with relative heading wrapped around them. And relative heading identifies the ID of the heading and what their parent ID is. So this one's parent is lorem ipsum, and you can see on down the road. So I could actually, reparent something, and you can see the headings get updated. Or I could, reparent something else down here. I can, update these headings very easily. And if we're on a page where lorem doesn't exist, everything else updates accordingly. Now, in order to be able to do that, you can't just have elements that sit by themselves. You want something that's managing state. So what I have, let me pull up relative heading state manager. So this is relative heading state manager. And relative heading light is actually, it gets the manager by requesting it initially. So you can see that it's saying, you know, request availability. And so the manager has this, what we call the singleton pattern, where it's looking for an instance of that particular state manager. And if not, it's actually appending a state manager to the body of the document, which is this element down here. Now, what I do is I'm attaching my heading to the manager. The manager has an add heading function somewhere in here. And it's just, it's adding the heading to the list. And it's keeping track of the headings. When the heading goes away at disconnect, the heading gets removed down here.
I actually saw that pattern in one of the things that Brian does. So that window, that actually is the host window. You're going all the way up from the shadow DOM element to the host.
Yep. So this is actually, yeah, this is the host window. And we're attaching this state manager to the host's body so that it's there for all the elements. All the headings then can attach themselves. You know, this ensures up here, this ensures that there's only one, just like Highlander. My movie references are really old. But yeah, this ensures that there's only one, and not that crappy second Highlander movie. But it says, okay, this is the instance. And once I have that instance here, I can say, hey, let's add it to my relative heading. Basically, when I get updated, I tell my manager, hey, I've been updated. And it will run through all of the headings. Let's see here. It will update all of the headings to be able to make sure they're updated by ID and make sure they're, you know, updated with what their parents have. And that's one pattern that I'm using for the headings. It's also doing this really crazy thing that there's a non-light option that you see these little links. It also manages this toast so that you can have links to headings in the full version. But it's one of the ways that I've used a singleton. The other way that I've used a singleton is in the video player. And if I play one video, chances are I probably don't, well, number one, if I scroll away from it, I like to be able to see it. But if I start playing this other video, I don't want like this wall of sound coming at me. So it's able to manage which video is playing so that there's only one playing. So I have a singleton that makes sure that video playing is in itself a singleton. And so I'm using, again, that singleton state manager pattern, this whole request availability and whatnot. This time, when I built this one, the way I did it was it's actually listening for a player being loaded. So I was debugging this. So it's basically adding a player when this player loader event comes up. So it's listening on the window for the alley player to say, hey, I'm here, and adds it to the list of players. If it's playing, it's going to check, it's going to run the sticky manager, and the sticky manager is just checking the scroll of the window to decide if this is within, you know, if it's on screen or if it needs to jump into the little sticky corner. It will also check for a player to make sure it's, you know, is it the active player, and turn everything else off. But that way it's all managed from one thing. I could have done the sticky piece on the individual video player, But then if I had multiple videos playing, I'd have a bunch of sticky videos. And if I'm watching the scroll all the time by all the players, that's a bunch of different scrolls I'm watching when I could just do it once from a manager for all the players, if that makes sense.
It's really cool with the video player moving up there. Is that copying it to a different element, or is it when it puts it up there, or is it just restyling the existing element?
It's restyling the existing one.
Cool.
Just, you know, absolute positioning and all of that.
Yeah, awesome.
Thanks.
Does this use the new picture-in-picture standard at all?
No, it does not. But that would be good to play around with.
And then the other question, a standards-related question: how does the are you using closest as a CSS selector to figure out the logic of where you are in the relative heading?
For the relative headings, what I'm doing to figure out where I am is I have that the ID of my parent, and that's how I track, you know, how these are embedded. And then that manager is keeping track of the relationships between these different things. And if the parent goes away, it signals to them, or if the parent changes, it will signal to all of the children to update. And it's doing it in light DOM so that you still have your headings. It's grabbing the heading out of light DOM, updating it and dropping it back in.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, my first thought on that too was I wasn't sure, like, is that a CSS selector that is like H1 with like, if everything was just a relative heading, you could just figure out the nesting and then be like, okay, if it's 2 levels deep, then it's an H3, but versus the siblings.
Yeah, I've thought about the idea of nesting things within things, but when I think about block editing and chunked content, you might pull something out of context, and I don't know, it just felt like a lot of nested divs. And this way we could apply the stuff that we saw with HAX last week with the outline schema. You could stop thinking about content as where it is on the page and think about these content blocks of where they live in the outline. And I think that, like, combined with this, you could really do some amazing stuff. Like, I want to pull the entire course out and turn it into an ebook, or I want to just pull out a single lesson, or I want to view it by page, or I just want to view one learning object that I'm embedding within Canvas.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of that block concept where the styling all looks, you know, in H1, you know, you have your title and your body and your picture and everything just looks the same. And then when you put it into a bigger story, then it melds into it as it should.
And I think that the one big challenge is this whole idea of, and I've been in enough, you know, done enough template archaeology to see that we're sometimes guessing what those headings are supposed to be when we're trying to treat this as blocks. And really, I would love to be able to just treat content with a heading as a block.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've run into that same problem, and I was wondering if people solve this yet. This is like both of these have done this, because like yesterday I was looking for last week I was looking for the markdown thing, and now this is the headings, relative headings. So nice work. This is awesome.
The markdown thing. Nikki, do you think you could just explain what this weird CORS issue we've been having with the video player is? Because anyone that does anything with video and web components could potentially run into this.
Oh, geez. Well, I mean, we had the one CORS issue because of how things were being dropped back in. I'm trying to think what all was involved in that.
So for context, the video player, as Nikki has it, has a like progressive enhancement methodology. So you actually write a video tag inside your video player. And so that way, if you're on, like, I don't know, it's going to be older versions of anything, but for SEO, that's an easy one, right? SEO, it's going to actually see the video tag and know what the source is, kind of a thing. But what we were running into is when we go out into production on that site that I showed earlier.
Oh yeah, the video. We had a specific video tag that wraps around Alley Player, and it was slotting its own video player inside of it, And so then it would take that and pull that slotted one, and instead of just dropping it in the alley slot, it would make a new version and pull all those sources out. And so it was just kind of getting bounced from player to player.
So we threw our videos get delivered from another domain, as do our transcripts. Now the videos were fine, but for whatever reason with timing and transcripts, if that video tag is not in the DOM with the CORS settings set ahead of time, it just gets PO'd. And so we'd actually get the video to play, but the transcripts would freak out.
The fact.
Yeah, the CORS would be set after the fact, and probably by, like 1 millisecond. And that was enough for it to just be like, bah, I already bombed on this. I don't want your transcript anymore.
Yeah, so yeah, we were driving ourselves crazy with the fact that we couldn't find that. And it really did have to do with when we added the progressive enhancement, what was going on. And once we wrapped it within Video Player.
Did you solve that CORS problem in the components, or did you have to do it on the server that was just deploying the transcripts?
It was solved on the server. It was a matter of the CORS setting on the component that wrapped my Alley media player wasn't applying to the slotted video in time.
Yeah, it has to be there before it gets a source or a track data. So if it's not there prior to that track showing up, which is what was happening, because hey, I'd write it into the page, and so I'd output it from a Drupal template. It would just write the track into the page with her track associated, but the CORS setting gets loaded ever so slightly after that initial paint. And so actually I think the progressive enhancement we were trying to do was actually part of the problem, because by having that in there, the DOM starts to pick it up and read it and go, oh, here's what the rules of the road are, versus if we had injected one with cross origin set via a property, it wouldn't have been an issue, because we would have teed up the whole video tag and then appended it. So figure we mentioned in part because Nikki makes mistakes, as do I, but that CORS is evil.
Race conditions are evil.
And race conditions are evil, and we still run into them quite frequently.